The poor mother-in-law who owned the family company. The Christmas tree was fake, 8 feet tall, dripping in gold ornaments that cost more than Ruth Harrison's first car. She stood at the kitchen sink of her daughter's Palo Alto glass mansion, sleeves rolled to the elbow, scrubbing a turkey pan the size of a satellite dish. The dishwasher was 3 feet away and empty. Nobody had offered to load it. "Mom, you missed a spot," Ashley called from the dining room, voice bright and sharp like a champagne flute about to crack. "Honestly, just leave it. The cleaning lady comes tomorrow." Ruth kept scrubbing, 75 years old, spine curved like a question mark, hands trembling from arthritis, but she could still get burnt cheese off stainless steel better than any Silicon Valley robot. She heard the laughter next. Her son-in-law Connor is braying hyena laugh, the one he saved for investors and people he was about to fire. "Ruth, come here!" Connor yelled. "You gotta see this!" She dried her hands on a towel that probably cost $70 and shuffled into the dining room. 28 people sat around a table made from a single slab of reclaimed redwood. Connor stood at the head, AirPods still in, wearing a hoodie that read "Disrupt or Die" in ironic Comic Sans. He was holding Ruth's gift. It was a hand-knitted scarf, forest green, made over 6 months while she watched Murder, She Wrote reruns. She'd used the softest merino yarn she could find on Etsy. It had taken her 3 tries to get the cable pattern right. Connor held it up like a dead rat. "Guys, check this out. My mother-in-law made me a scarf, like with actual needles." He turned it over. "There's a hole here. Ruth, did you drop a stitch?" The table erupted. Someone filmed it vertically. Ashley covered her mouth, but her shoulders shook. Their 8-year-old grandson, Ethan, repeated, "Dropped a stitch," like it was the funniest thing ever said. Ruth felt the heat crawl up her neck, the same heat she'd felt in 1974 when her husband Leonard died and the bank tried to take the house. She smiled, the way she'd smiled then. Small, polite, lethal. "It's warm," she said quietly. "Keeps the neck warm." Connor draped it over the back of a chair. "We'll donate it to the homeless drive, Ruth. They'll love it." He winked at the room. "Next year, maybe just Venmo us. Yeah, you don't have to stress yourself." Ashley chimed in, "Mom, we told you, no more homemade stuff. It's sweet, but we have everything." Ruth looked at the mountain of gifts under the tree. Most still had tags from Neiman Marcus and Apple. Her scarf was already forgotten. Connor raised his glass. "To family and to Ruth, who still thinks it's 1986. More laughter. Someone clinked a fork against crystal. Ruth stood there in her sensible orthopedic shoes and felt the floor tilt just a little. She excused herself to the bathroom, locked the door, stared at the marble countertop and the diptyque candles that smelled like rich people's guilt. Then she took out her phone, an iPhone 6 she'd refused to upgrade because it still makes calls. She opened the Notes app and typed one line. "They have no idea." Christmas night, after the Uber dropped her back to her modest bungalow in Mountain View, Ruth poured herself a small glass of sherry, the good stuff she saved for funerals and lottery wins. She sat in Leonard's old leather chair, the one with the duct tape arms, and opened the fireproof safe under the floorboards. Inside were 3 things: a yellowed wedding photo, 1969, Leonard's death certificate, 1974, and a single share certificate dated March 15, 1975. Harrison Microsystems, Inc., Class A voting shares, 510,000. Owner, Ruth Marie Harrison. Leonard had founded the company in their garage with 2 Stanford dropouts. By 1980, it became the backbone of every banking terminal from Sacramento to Singapore. In 1987, IBM offered $42 million. Leonard said no. In 1994, Intel offered $180 million. Leonard said no again. He died of a heart attack 3 weeks later, age 48, before he could say yes to anyone. The board begged Ruth to sell. She was 31, widowed, pregnant with Ashley, and terrified. Instead, she did something nobody expected. She kept the shares, hired a ruthless CEO named Margaret Cho, and went to night school for accounting. Margaret turned Harrison Microsystems into a cash-spewing machine that nobody noticed because it wasn't sexy. No apps, no social media, just the quiet chips that made ATMs and stock exchanges never crash. By 2024, the company was worth $4.1 billion on paper, and Ruth owned 51% of the voting stock. The other 49% had been sold off in slivers to VCs who thought they were buying the whole pie. And Connor? Connor had married Ashley in 2018 and convinced her to invest her trust fund into his revolutionary AI startup, Neuralink 2.0. Same name as Elon Musk's, but with more yoga. He'd raised $180 million at a $2 billion valuation. Ashley was chief marketing officer. They'd put Ruth's bungalow as collateral without asking because mom doesn't understand equity anyway. Ruth sipped her sherry and smiled for the first day, December 26, 6:03 a.m. Connor was hungover on the Peloton when his phone exploded. Subject: Emergency board meeting, Harrison Microsystems. Time today, 12 p.m. PST, location Zoom. Mandatory attendance for all Class A shareholders. He laughed so hard he almost fell off the bike. Harrison Microsystems? That was his wife's mom's zombie company. They hadn't had a board meeting since 2019. He forwarded it to Ashley with emoji, ha 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 ha. At 9:58 a.m., they logged in from Connor's home office, still wearing matching Patagonia vests. The Zoom grid filled with ancient white men in golf shirts and one woman they didn't recognize. Asian, mid-60s, hair like steel. Margaret Cho. Connor muted himself and whispered, "Who invited the dragon lady?" Margaret's voice cut through like a guillotine. "Good morning. As the controlling shareholder has called this meeting, we'll begin." Connor snorted. Controlling shareholder? That was Ruth, and Ruth couldn't work Zoom if her life depended on it. The little tile labeled RH lit up. Ruth appeared on screen wearing a burgundy blazer and pearls the size of gumballs. Her hair was swept up, makeup flawless, behind her floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the turquoise Caribbean. She was on a yacht. Connor's stomach dropped. "Morning, everyone," Ruth said, voice crisp as December air. "Thank you for joining on short notice. Item 1, termination of current CEO Connor Brennan effective immediately." Connor unmute. "What the hell?" Margaret interrupted. "Seconded." All in favor? Every tile raised a green check mark, even the guys Connor golfed with. Connor's face went purple. "You can't do this! I don't even work for Harrison Microsystems!" Ruth leaned closer to the camera. "You do now, sweetheart." Item 2, acquisition of Neuralink 2.0 and an all-stock transaction. Valuation $180 million. That's what you raised at, correct? Ashley squeaked. Connor's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. Ruth continued. "The new entity will be called Ruthless Tech." Cute, right? I thought of it myself. Margaret slid a document across the screen share. "Sign here, Connor, or we foreclose on the bungalow, and the Tesla, and the vineyard property you forgot to tell the Series C investors about." Connor stared at the screen, his empire, gone in 90 seconds. Ruth wasn't finished. Item 3, new board appointments. Margaret Cho remains CEO. I'll take executive chairman. And our new compassion officer, she turned the camera, a golden retriever in a tiny sailor hat barked. "That's Captain Sparkles. He has more Instagram followers than both of you combined." Ashley started crying, real tears this time, not the performative ones she used on Shark Tank. Ruth softened, but only a little. "You have 30 days to vacate the Palo Alto house. I'm turning it into a coding camp for grandmothers. Free, obviously." Connor found his voice. "Mom, please, we can fix this. It was just a joke about the scarf." Ruth's eyes turned to ice. "Leonard knitted that scarf pattern for me on our honeymoon. You called it garbage. Merry Christmas." She left the meeting. The yacht in the background was named Dropped Stitch. January 15th, Ruthless Tech Launch Party. Location, the old Harrison Microsystems campus, now painted hot pink. 500 guests, grandmas in sequins, coders in hoodies, one very confused Mark Cuban who thought he was at the wrong event. Ruth walked on stage in a white pantsuit and Louboutins dyed to match the company logo. She held a mic like Taylor Swift at the Eras Tour. 49 years ago, my husband died and left me a company and a baby girl. Everyone said sell. I said no. Tonight, that company is worth $4 billion, and my granddaughter just sold her first line of code at age 8. Turns out grandmas disrupt pretty well. The crowd roared. Connor and Ashley watched from the parking lot on Ashley's phone. They'd been uninvited. Security, 2 80-year-old ex-Marines who'd learned jiu-jitsu on YouTube. Connor whispered, "We could sue." Ashley shook her head. "She owns the lawyers now, too." Back on stage, Ruth raised a glass of champagne. To every woman who was told she was too old, too poor, too untechnical, watch us code. She pressed a button, the giant screen behind her lit up with the new logo, Ruthless Tech, because Grandma knows best. 6 months later, Ruth's bungalow was gone. In its place, a tiny homes village for senior women in tech. She lived full-time on the yacht, but flew back every Friday to teach Grandma Gaga's coding boot camp. Enrollment? 40,000 waitlist. Ashley showed up one Friday, alone, wearing jeans and no makeup. She stood at the back of the classroom watching her mother debug Python with a room full of blue-haired ladies whooping like it was bingo night. After class, Ruth found her. "I brought the scarf," Ashley said, holding up the forest green cable knit, now perfectly blocked and pressed. "I fixed the dropped stitch." Ruth took it, ran her thumb over the repair. Good tension. Ashley's voice cracked. "Mom, I was awful. I'm sorry." Ruth looked at her daughter. Really looked, for the first time in years. "You were cruel," Ruth said, "but you're still my daughter. Captain Sparkles has a spare cabin. One rule, you scrub the dishes, by hand." Ashley laughed through tears. "Deal." They walked out together. The scarf, now perfect, was around Ruth's neck. The dropped stitch cut through San Francisco Bay, pink logo gleaming in the sunset. On the stern, a new nameplate had been added in gold. "In memory of Leonard Harrison, who taught me to knit, to code, and to never sell." And under that, in smaller letters, "P.S. We bought Neiman Marcus. Everything's 50% off for grandmas."